Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Nitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. Today is July 11th, and we have with us the legendary Jesse Powell, CEO and founder of Kraken, the largest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchange in the world, especially when it comes to exchanging cryptocurrencies for fiat currencies. Welcome to the podcast, Jesse.
Thanks, Trace. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into this. You've been around the space for a long time. You've seen it grow in waves as we've had different price bubbles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, when we look at scalability, a lot of people seem to really focus on scalability at the protocol level. I like to step back a little bit and look not just at the protocol, but also at the infrastructure surrounding it, our businesses, whether it's Kraken or Coinbase or BitPay or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, let's kind of start with scalability at the protocol level. We've got things like SegWit 2x, we've got BIP 148, BIP 149, we've got SegWit. Like, where's Kraken come down on all this stuff?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot, and our official position is that we don't take a position on protocol debates for any of the 16 coins that we add or that we support, nor do we take a position on monetary policy of any of the 5 fiat currencies we support. We provide a marketplace. We try to remain neutral. Some of these protocols are developing so fast, and we're adding more coins so fast that it's just impossible to really thoroughly evaluate everything and keep track of the debates. And this debate in Bitcoin has been going on now for years. So it could be somebody's full-time job to keep up with what's going on here for each of these coins. And so we try to stay out of it. It's not our place to say. What we wouldn't like to see is any kind of contentious fork that creates a custodial problem for us, where we have to freeze funding for a long period of time or halt trading on an asset while the fork is decided.
So what about something like BIP 148? Assuming it actually does have enough hashing power to get across the difficulty readjustment, and we were to have this fork happen that could result in like a potential reorg or things like that, how would Kraken approach this custodianship issue?
Yeah, so the reorg or wipeout situation is a real concern for us. If there were perceived risk of that, I think we would have to freeze funding.
Both deposits and withdrawals?
I think we could still take deposits. I think what we would do in the event of a fork is we would effectively have 2 coins. Everybody with a balance on Kraken would have 2 coins, just as we did with Ether. And until the resolution of the fork, we felt confident that there wasn't going to be a reorg, funding, at least withdrawals, would be frozen. If you deposited Bitcoin, if there were no risk of replay attacks, you would get 1 coin or the other, depending on which fork you funded from.
What about like Ether? Ether, I think, is a kind of a good example of this Ether Classic issue. From what I understand, Coinbase lost $28,000 more or less that they made their customers whole with, mm-hmm. but they ate the loss on this. What about Kraken? Like, how did the Ether Classic play out for you guys? Like, how did you handle that fork?
So just as described, we split the coins and we kept track of both coin balances, and we had replay protection. So whenever somebody sent a coin in, we replayed it on the other chain for them, so they would get both coins, and vice versa. So, I think that, we did that despite the advice we got from the Ethereum Foundation and people in the community that there was not going to be two coins. Everybody said, don't worry about Classic, like that's going to go away. Only worry about, this new forked coin. And it's a good thing that we didn't do that, because we would have been in the same position where we would have suffered replay attacks, and we would have lost the Classic coins, and either our clients would have lost the coin, or it would have been on us to make our clients whole for that.
Well, I mean, there's a good chance, at least under doctrines of waste or legal doctrines of like waste or unjust enrichment, that, you've got this fiduciary duty, right? So,
yeah.
These types of forks or things, they can really create, would you say, an unnecessary amount of work for the exchanges and whatnot? Or is that just the business that you're in?
To some extent, it's the business we're in. Whether it's unnecessary or not, I don't know.
Or are you agnostic?
Sometimes
agnostic
wars are necessary, right? You can't always solve everything in an amicable way. And it seems like the Bitcoin debate has just kind of come to a head now, and we're beyond negotiation now, and it's kind of that, like, bring your guns out.
Bring out your hash power, your hodling keys.
Yeah. But this raises another question, which we had to deal with Ethereum, which is who gets the name Bitcoin?
Right.
It's despite the you have the users deciding which wallets they want to use. You have the miners putting their hash power on a particular chain, but it's really the wallets and exchange service providers who kind of control, like, what we call Bitcoin.
The branding.
Right. So which coin is it? And we did it with Ether, and really, probably what we now call Classic Ether is the real Ethereum, right? And the forked one is something else. It's like, we have to decide this in Bitcoin as well. If there are going to be two Bitcoins, it'll be up to the exchanges to decide which one is we continue to call BTC or XBT, and which one gets a new ticker or a new name.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is still to be decided by, the exchanges. I don't think there's any consensus on that either.
Yeah. Well, there was the letter signed by, I think, 20 exchanges or something.
Yeah. So that was about Bitcoin Unlimited specifically.
But BIP 148 is a whole different animal, because like it's a soft fork where one could actually, like, retake and reorganize a chain. Right.
So
and even Peter Woola in the Bitcoin development IRC channel said, well, if the BIP 148 gets longer, then it's the longest chain and it's valid. So it's Bitcoin.
Right.
And so that's what, Core would recognize it as such, because that's how the Bitcoin Core software would work.
Mm-hmm.
So, this could get very kind of interesting.
Yeah. It raises philosophical questions as to, what is
trademark
Bitcoin?
law?
Yeah. How do you define Bitcoin? Is it the longest chain, or is there some other component of it that we should take into consideration?
Yeah, well, all perhaps unsolvable questions until one gets to court, I suppose.
Hopefully, I don't see this going to court, but
well, if Coinbase decided that they weren't going to, reimburse people the $28,000, and people were going to take a loss, and they felt they shouldn't take the loss. How else is that dispute going to be resolved in the courtroom? Yeah. Except in this case, we're not talking $28,000, right?
Yeah.
We're talking potentially hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, or billions.
Or billions. We're talking $40 billion market cap.
Yeah.
And even Ether Classic's at like a $1.5 billion market cap, even still.
Yeah.
Right? So that minority spinoff token, even if it only takes 5% of Bitcoin's current market cap, we're still looking at a $2 billion market cap altcoin that comes out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we get asked a lot as well lately, are my Bitcoins safe with Kraken? And we tell people, look, the safest thing for you to do is, of course, to not give custody to anybody else.
Right.
Take it yourself and take responsibility for managing the fork yourself in the way that you see fit.
But in order to do that, you've got two components, right? You've got network consensus and private keys.
Right.
Right. So when we're talking about network consensus issues here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how on top of the game is Kraken when it comes to network consensus issues? You're managing 16 coins.
Yeah. So, with Bitcoin specifically, we use the BitGo wallet for our hot wallet. So, ultimately, I guess it could be up to us to leave BitGo and go do our own thing if we disagree with BitGo about how to handle the protocol or how to run the wallets. But we interact with them quite a bit about how we see, handling the situation. With regard to the other protocols for the other 15 coins that we offer, this isn't, some deal with forks in different ways. Some have really, really great ways of dealing with forks and protocol upgrades. And they don't seem to have the same political issues that Bitcoin has.
Well, they're not as big.
Right. So understandable. So we haven't had as hard of a time. Really, the only other major issue we've had has been Ether. So this will be, I guess, the second test of how to handle a major fork.
Could be fun.
Yeah, maybe for the bystanders, but for the exchanges and the wallets, I think it's
and the miners. The miners are the ones who really have to put their money where their mouth is by choosing which side of the fork to mine, right?
Yep.
So
yeah. Hopefully, we all get on the same side pretty quickly, and there's not a protracted battle.
Yeah. Could be interesting. Yeah. Switching gears, the Mark Karpeles is currently being charged and tried in court in Japan for embezzlement and data misuse and other charges.
Yep.
You guys, Kraken was awarded by the bankruptcy trustee to distribute the 202,000 coins.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, you sent forms out and people created their accounts and they're all ready to receive them. Mm-hmm. What's the deal? Where's the 202,000 coins? Why haven't we got them?
Well, the trustee still has them. As far as I'm aware, the last thing holding up the payouts is the ongoing litigation with CoinLab, which is, I believe they're asking for $75 million for an alleged breach of contract with Mt. Gox over, in my view, kind of a ridiculous deal that went south years ago. I think this was 2013 that this deal was made. So basically, there's effectively a business claim against the client's funds, effectively. I don't know if you ever see this in banking, where you have a custodian
it's really
somehow
odd,
putting, with the client's funds at risk to pay a business creditor. So, I don't really get that. But this is being hashed out in Japanese court.
And in U.S. federal court.
Right?
Yeah.
I think there's also another $5 million on top of this that was given as a deposit of sorts, for this deal back in 2013, and that deposit was never returned.
Well, who gave the deposit and who received the deposit?
So Mt. Gox gave the deposit to CoinLab.
And CoinLab
so CoinLab was going to operate the exchange business in the United States for Mt. Gox. Effectively, I think the premise of this deal was that Mark didn't want to deal with U.S. regulation and getting all the licenses to operate in the U.S., and so he was effectively going to hand off the U.S. component of the business, the U.S. clients, to CoinLab to operate in the United States. But a condition of that handoff was that CoinLab get the necessary licenses to do the operation, right? Otherwise, they're no better off than Mt. Gox just doing it themselves without licenses. So CoinLab never got the licenses, but kept the $5 million deposit that Mark had sent So they have that, plus they have, and now they're asking for.
But the trustee's trying to get that $5 million returned.
Trustee's trying to get the $5 million back, and obviously have the $75 million case
lawsuit dismissed, right? Whatever.
Yeah, but CoinLab's bankrupt in the meantime, so whether they even have that $5 million is, is questionable.
And CoinLab, if I understand it correctly, that is Peter Vesness, who was the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation.
Right, that's right.
So effectively, we've got a bankrupt CoinLab with a frivolous lawsuit that's holding up the distribution of 202,000 Bitcoins to rightful that were held in a custodianship relationship. Mm-hmm. And so he's holding them up with a business-related lawsuit on these customer funds.
Right.
202,000 Bitcoins.
Right. So he's effectively asking the Mt. Gox victims to pay for his business problem.
He's holding them all ransom, effectively.
Exactly. So that, he obviously wants to settle.
That sounds like a bad idea.
At this point, personally, I wouldn't take on that risk. I mean, it seems like you got a lot of angry creditors who've been waiting for the Bitcoin for a long time.
Well, I mean, what's Stalin say? No man, no problem. I mean, it just sounds like a really bad idea. I mean, 202,000 Bitcoins is, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money now. Yeah. In fact, it's in today's Bitcoin price.
And the time value of money, just the interest on 202,000 Bitcoins is a lot of money. So when you're holding this up, man, that seems like such a bad idea to me. My trust and estates professor in law school, he'd help people, create their asset protection plans in like Rancho Santa Fe, California, which like lots of money. And one of his clients was like, came up with this, and he's like, well, how about instead of like the $5 million life insurance policy, how about a $20 million life insurance policy? And he told him, he was like, do you really want somebody to have this $20 million financial incentive for you not to be around anymore?
Yeah.
and the guy kind of thought about it, and he was like, oh yeah, that's not a good idea. We'll just stick with the $5 million. Right. So this just seems like a really bad idea for Peter, because 202,000 Bitcoin, the Mt. Gox creditors have missed out on $200 million.
Yeah.
Because Peter's held up this lawsuit. That just seems like a really bad idea to me, to be gumming up the works in any type of a way. But
it's insane. It seems like people don't really care, or they're not aware, because he's still out there offering his security consulting services, and I guess he's getting business. So
yeah, well, I know several people that have millions of dollars tied up in Mt. Gox claims, and they might just not know that it's solely the result of this one particular person who's gumming up the works and not letting them get their funds back.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, to be clear, I wouldn't say he's the only thing, that, if he weren't around tomorrow, we would all have our money. There may be other like minor things left to do, but this is definitely by far the largest thing.
But it's not Kraken's fault. Like if
this
were resolved, you guys could get those 202,000 Bitcoins distributed really quick.
It would be fairly quick. Yeah, I think there's nothing else major to deal with at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of shift gears to scalability issues. Not at the protocol level, but at the business issue, at the business infrastructure level. We're dealing with, new verification of new accounts. How about a Kraken? Are we seeing like new accounts being funded? What's it look like compared to like historical trends?
Yeah, it's been crazy. The last quarter was by far maybe 10x above the largest previous quarter. So the growth has been immense. We have been getting 4,000 support tickets a day. We've hired per day. Yeah. So, and it's a lot, it's not all like easy questions. Part of the, this happens in any rally where you get a lot of newbies coming in, and they have a lot of newbie questions. And, it also tends to strain our banking and payments relationships, which which just further compounds the issue. So, the guys that we use for payment processing are our banks. They might be fine with what the usual volume is, but an overnight 10x in wire transfers or KYC requests, because we often they will often want to do enhanced diligence, right? And if they have to do 10x what their usual enhanced diligence is, they might need to hire more people themselves, or maybe they're sending wires with a team of 5 people that are manually typing the wires in. But when you 10x the number of wires you're sending through, they're faced with the question of, okay, should we just let this backlog of wires accumulate, or should we hire 45 more people on our wires team? And how long is this going to last? And what does it mean if this drops off later and then we have to fire 45 people? In some countries, firing 45 people is not easy, right? So it strains kind of the whole system when you've got that kind of growth. It would obviously be much nicer to have gradual growth, but
nice organic growth, not these gigantic bubbles.
Right. Good problem to have, of course.
First world problem.
Yeah. But I'm always fearful, because we lived through this at the end of 2013 before, right? Where we had the run up from like 200 to
and then the bear
1,200,
market, yeah,
and then a bear market for like a year and a half after that. And we went we had about 35 people in the company at the peak in late 2013, early 2014. We ended up having to lay off half the company, which meant we went back to like 12 people basically.
Wow.
So that was obviously tough to, lay off half the team. And
a lot of them are good people that you need around, but we just don't have the money.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So we really struggled through that period of time. Finally became profitable again, at the end of 2015, and have been doing well since. The increasing growth in the ecosystem of more coins and the market cap increasing, and the activity has obviously been good for the business. But now we're kind of like in the situation again. This time, instead of 15 people, we've hired 150 in the last 2 months.
Hired 150 people?
Hired 150 people.
Are there even that many people who know what crypto is? Know what I'm saying? You have
to looking for jobs.
You have to get them trained. You have to get them brought up to speed, understand all this stuff, understand Kraken specifically, what's going on in their role. How do you scale up like this? It's
tough. There's obviously a lot of training that goes into teaching people how to answer support tickets. So we had this system in place already, but basically there's a triage system, and when people fill out support tickets, we try to get as much information as we can up front in kind of the pre-submission survey, so that it gets directed to people who know how to deal with that issue. So we've kind of got a first wave of people that will evaluate the simpler issues. When you have a lot of newbies coming in, they have a lot of newbie questions that can be answered relatively simply. You don't really need to understand the intricacies of how Kraken works to answer their tickets. But many tickets are related to funding issues, which are related to scaling issues at our funding partners. So
it's even just beyond what you're able to control over anyways.
Right, exactly. So it can be out of our hands. We've had a queue of, at its height, of 500 people waiting to receive the enhanced verification or enhanced review by our payments partner. And, that was like a backlog that was like 2 weeks long, basically, at the pace that they were getting through them. And, you basically got 2 choices. You can either wait, or you can go find another bank or payments partner, and that's not easy to do either. You can't do that overnight. And we've kind of, the guys that have taken us on have taken some risk, and they're very forward thinking, and they're very pro Bitcoin. So it's not that they're bad. It's just for whatever reason, it might be the laws where they're at or whatever, they're having trouble scaling themselves.
It's just an egg going through a snake, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of what makes you legendary, right? Someone said, what makes you legendary? You outlive everybody else. And so, I mean, how many Bitcoin companies didn't survive the bear market?
A lot didn't survive,
or they got acquired.
Yeah.
I mean, Kraken made a few acquisitions, right? Like, let's see, you had Coinsetter, Glidera, CryptoWatch.
Yep.
Maybe you'd want to talk a little bit about some of those, how that went.
Yeah, these were all good. So with Coinsetter, we acquired a lot of users. We didn't keep the product around. It was basically a user acquisition. We got a couple people for the team, which was great. It's always good. I love the people component of taking on new businesses, especially another exchange. You get all the institutional knowledge that they've built, and then you get to incorporate it into your organization and kind of learn it. It's sort of like the Highlander way of growing your knowledge. You like, this is a bad analogy, but you cut off the head of your opponent and you download their knowledge.
I know Kung Fu, right? Well, how about the Glidera with Kraken Direct?
So that was really good. We got a couple great team members there. We got our COO, Dave, out of that. We got a great product, which is integrated with many wallets. And it's a great way for people that want a very simple way from their mobile wallet to buy or sell Bitcoin. And Kraken, the exchange, is used on the back end to source the liquidity for that process. So strong synergy there. It's a product we've got big plans for. We'd like to build out a lot more. Right now, it only supports Bitcoin in dollars, but we want to get it to the point where you can do any of the currencies that Kraken supports, including cryptos and fiats. So we got big plans for Glidera, which we now call Kraken Direct.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the jobs page, I think, in preparation for the interview, jobs.lever.co/Kraken. I was looking at there, just looking what you guys are hiring. I mean, 150 people in the last 2 months. There's VP of engineering, compliance officer, analyst. I mean, that's an interesting one. How about this analyst? Why do you need crypto analysts? What exactly would they be doing? And how's that going to help Kraken grow or whatever?
Yeah. So I think the analyst position is pretty fun. If you're already into crypto, you're researching all the coins that come out. You might as well get paid to do it. We basically need somebody in-house. I mean, we have this already, but there's so many coins now. It takes a lot of resources to evaluate and track everything that's happening from ICO launch date to the kind of to when it becomes actually tradable. Is it something we want to list? Is it a scam? How much? What's the public sentiment around it? Are there any major criticisms? Is there a large community around it? What do our clients want us to do? So there's a lot to evaluate. I think there's a new coin launching every day this month. It's just insane. So we basically need someone to collect all the information, kind of review the protocol and the project as a whole. Are the founders known? And make a pitch internally to what we should list or how we should prioritize. What should be the next 10 coins that Kraken lists and why, and what's the business case. So there's so many coins coming out. There's obviously a lot of work to be done there. We want to have all the information collected in a standardized way internally, so that anytime someone wants to look internally to know, we need to calendar things like this is the launch date for the coin. So that needs to queue up this process internally for training the support team on how to deal with those tickets, for PR, marketing, any announcements we want to make. So there's a whole process that kind of goes into place with any coin launch. So having some advance warning and decision about what the roadmap is going to be is very helpful. So that's kind of what that job is, and we could use a few of those people.
Yeah, what about customer support? I mean, let's get this ticket backlog fixed.
Yeah, so this is a massive problem. At the height, we had a backlog of 50,000 tickets.
Oh my goodness.
And now we're at the point where we're solving 25-30% more tickets per day than we're getting. So we're clearing the backlog pretty quickly.
How long do you think it'll take to have that rest of that backlog clear?
I think we should be clear by the end of July.
Oh,
for sure. That's our target.
That's a little less weaselly than a date on the new trading engine, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Actually, that has been held up due to, in part one, putting out fires related to just the massive growth. We're struggling just to keep the servers from falling over at this point. We thought we had a little bit more time. Efforts were diverted away from actually implementing the new trading engine to just keeping everything running. But also we hit a hiccup with the hardware the new trading engine is going to be running on. It's pretty specialized stuff. And there was some shortage of a particular component of some of that hardware that we've been waiting to be filled.
So when it gets out, are we looking at nice new spiffy Porsche or?
How's this thing at least 1,000x improvement in
what
bandwidth
throughput, latency, like all the stuff you're able to like process and crunch through.
Basically,
wow.
The days of slowness on the website should be over. And that should be coming very soon.
Well, that's exciting. What about developers? I mean, it seems everybody I talk to in the crypto space always needs developers. Do you guys need developers here?
Yeah, basically unlimited developers, from crypto developers that will work on implementing crypto gateways, to more advanced, maybe more interesting things we want to do with blockchain technology, or there's a lot. I won't talk about it, but a lot of cool things we have in progress that are working on blockchains directly. Devs for all sorts of stuff, man. We're hiring. So we're building out. We have several teams. One is just internal tools to make the support team more efficient. There were some inefficiencies in that process that were slowing people down. Just some things required 3 clicks when they could have taken 1. Mm-hmm. And when you're at the scale of tickets that we're dealing with,
50,000 tickets, you're talking about 150,000 clicks instead of 1 click, right?
Yeah, it can eat up a lot of time. So, when you have that many people, we've got, close to 200 people now dealing with support issues. And, if you can make all those guys 25% more efficient, you save yourself from hiring another 50 people. Mm-hmm. So working on those tools has been a big project. And, we're trying to really give them great tools.
Streamline, automate, outsource as much as you can, then work on the remaining.
Yeah, so we've also got the Crypto Watch project, which was another acquisition that you mentioned. Constantly adding features to that. It's the new trading interface for Kraken. So you can also see it at trade.kraken.com. It's got great tools, great charts. So that's a full team. We got the complete website redesign is another team. Mobile. That's pretty much, and the Glidera project as well.
Wow.
So several teams within the company. And so we kind of need devs of all kinds across the board.
What, kind of in the podcast we've gone for a while here, but where do you see you're at the very nexus of the old system and the new system. You're helping people get across this giant chasm from the old world into the new world with crypto assets. What do you think of this crypto industry? We're 8 years into it. Where do you see it going? Like, what are your general thoughts?
I think if the source of most of our tickets is any indication, it's just going to continue to grow. 90% of our support tickets are related to some sort of fiat payments problem. So people having issues one way or the other, getting fiat in or out. And on the crypto side, no problems. Like, rarely do we get a ticket about somebody having a problem funding their account with crypto. It's usually like a US dollars thing. and it's caught at some intermediary bank, or it's caught at their bank, or whatever. So I think the space has easily 10 to 100x room to grow, and probably even further than that. So, I think the next 5 years are going to be extremely interesting. Some countries like Japan have put together reasonable regulation that's very favorable to the industry, that has given room to big banks and other traditional financial institutions to get involved in the space somehow and expose Bitcoin to their clients or offer Bitcoin trading to their clients. So I think it's going to continue to become more mainstream, and more governments around the world are going to become they're going to hand out responsible, reasonable regulation, and it's just going to grow from there. I think in some way it's nice that we don't have very clear regulation, but it would also be nice to have clear regulation, because I think it's kind of capping the growth in the countries where we don't have clarity. And we don't want clarity like we have in New York, which is the bit license, which is basically, you're going to live a tortured existence if you want to deal with Bitcoin activity there. It would be great just to have the same standards as any other kind of payment processor. But with the risks, or with the rules kind of controlled for specifically what the risks are with crypto. And a lot of those risks are gone, because many of the risks come from middlemen and intermediaries. And when you don't have that, when you have multi-sig, you don't need someone to custody for you, the risks are gone. So that just needs to be addressed. Coin Center is doing a great job with this, and I think we're making progress.
Yeah, well, it's been a wonderful interview. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down, give everybody in this crypto space, an update on, where the largest exchange sits in terms of this whole BIP 148, New York agreement, SegWit, Frankenwit, whatever it is, mess, the Mt. Gox distribution. I know there are a lot of people who want to get their 202,000 Bitcoins out, and then just, where the real issues are at, scaling the companies in addition to scaling at the protocol level. So, thanks so much for being with us. Keep up the good work, and we'll have you on again.
All right. Thanks, Trace.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.